All right, buckle up because what's happening beneath Naples right now sounds like science fiction, but it's very real, very measured, and very dangerous. And before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel because this is one of those stories that is evolving in real time and you will want the updates. Every single breath taken by nearly 3 million people living in Naples now contains carbon dioxide levels that simply should not exist in a normal city environment, levels usually associated with volcanic craters and confined industrial zones, not family homes, schools, subway stations, or shopping centers. And this is not a prediction or a future scenario. This is the hard reality confirmed by atmospheric monitoring in 2025 as Campi Flegrei, one of the most dangerous supervolcanoes on Earth, has quietly transformed the air above Italy's third largest metropolitan area into a slow-moving chemical threat. Scientists have measured average carbon dioxide concentrations across Naples reaching around 572 parts per million, roughly 33% higher than the global background level. And that might sound like just a number until you understand what it represents, because Campi Flegrei is now releasing an estimated 5,000 tons of carbon dioxide every single day, 7 times more than nearby Mount Vesuvius, while sitting directly beneath a dense urban population that has no way to see, smell, or feel the danger until it's already affecting their bodies. What turns this from a geological concern into a full-scale metropolitan crisis is the way the gas moves, because prevailing Mediterranean sea breezes act like a conveyor belt, carrying the volcanic plume straight toward western Naples, where the gas sinks into low-lying neighborhoods, seeps into basements, subway tunnels, parking garages, and underground shopping areas, and pools silently in enclosed spaces, effectively turning parts of the city into invisible traps. Emergency inspections carried out by fire brigades across Naples have revealed carbon dioxide concentrations in some underground locations approaching 6,000 parts per million, levels that can cause dizziness, confusion, loss of consciousness, and in extreme cases, death, especially when exposure happens without warning, and these dangerous pockets have been detected in places people use every day, including residential basements, public transport systems, and commercial buildings, creating a hidden network of hazards spread throughout the city. What makes this even more disturbing is the source of the gas itself, because Campi Flegrei is no longer just releasing carbon dioxide from magma deep underground. Scientists have confirmed that up to 40% of these emissions are coming from the volcanic system, literally breaking down the limestone bedrock beneath Naples, chemically converting it into carbon dioxide through intense heat and circulating fluids, meaning the volcano is feeding on the geological foundation of the city to fuel its atmospheric assault. This raises an almost unthinkable question because when the threat isn't lava or ash but the very air people breathe, how do you evacuate a city? How do you defend against a volcano that doesn't need to erupt to be deadly? And why is this escalation happening now, as Campi Flegrei enters what experts describe as its most unstable phase in centuries? To understand why this situation is so alarming, you have to understand what Campi Flegrei actually is, because it's not a single cone like Vesuvius. It's a massive 12-kilometer-wide caldera formed around 39,000 years ago during the Campanian ignimbrite eruption, one of the most powerful volcanic events in Europe's history, an explosion so immense it collapsed an entire magma chamber and blanketed vast regions of the Mediterranean in ash, leaving behind a complex volcanic depression that now underlies the western outskirts of Naples. Beneath that landscape lies an active magmatic system capable of eruptions that would dwarf anything humanity has ever witnessed. And scattered across the caldera are multiple vents and weak points, each a potential pathway for volcanic gases and magma to reach the surface, from the constantly hissing Solfatara crater with its boiling mud pools and sulfurous steam, to the Pisciarelli fumarolic field where superheated gases escape through fractured rock. And even areas between these vents are dangerous because carbon dioxide seeps directly through the soil in a process known as diffuse degassing, releasing hundreds of tons of gas daily without any dramatic visual warning. What makes Campi Flegrei uniquely terrifying is not just its power, but its location, because this entire system is woven directly into a living city, with homes, ports, roads, and railways sitting on top of one of the most restless volcanic structures on the planet. And as geologists from the Vesuvius Observatory explain, this is the most densely populated active volcanic area in Europe, meaning even small changes in volcanic behavior immediately become public health emergencies. At the center of this crisis is carbon dioxide, an odorless, colorless gas that doesn't announce itself like ash clouds or lava flows, yet poses the greatest immediate threat, and Campi Flegrei produces it through two main processes, the first being direct magmatic degassing, as rising magma releases enormous volumes of trapped gases, accounting for roughly 60 to 80% of emissions. But the second process is what sets this volcano apart, because hydrothermal fluids circulating through the crust heat and chemically react with limestone, releasing additional carbon dioxide in a feedback loop that can persist for centuries, effectively turning the surrounding rock into a gas factory. The result is a vast multi-layered emission system, with carbon dioxide escaping from vents, mud pools, hot springs, and even open ground, reaching daily outputs comparable to a mid-sized coal power plant. And according to volcanologists, local wind patterns ensure that much of this gas is repeatedly funneled toward Naples, where it settles into breathing zones, especially during calm weather conditions. While this might feel like a sudden disaster, scientists have been watching Campi Flegrei's warning signs for decades through a phenomenon known as bradyseism, slow ground movement caused by pressure changes beneath the caldera. And since the 1950s, this region has experienced repeated crises where the ground rose dramatically, buildings cracked, and thousands of earthquakes rattled. Communities like Pozzuoli forcing mass evacuations, particularly during the intense episodes between 1982 and 1984 when over 40,000 people were displaced and more than 16,000 earthquakes were recorded. Each of these bradyseismic episodes was accompanied by spikes in gas emissions and rising temperatures at fumaroles, effectively rehearsals for the situation unfolding today. And while activity calmed for a time, the volcano never truly went to sleep. In 2005, the ground began rising again, slowly at first, then persistently, and by 2015, uplift had reached over 40 centimeters. Fumaroles roared louder, gas temperatures soared, and carbon dioxide output nearly tripled over the following years, climbing from under 1,000 tons per day to as much as 5,000, signaling a long-term awakening rather than a short-lived crisis. By early 2025, the escalation became impossible to ignore. As earthquake swarms shook the caldera with a violence not seen in decades, gas monitoring stations were overwhelmed, and carbon dioxide infiltrated deeper into the urban environment, marking the beginning of what experts now describe as an atmospheric siege. Campi Flegrei has not erupted, but it doesn't need to, because it has already turned the air above Naples into a weapon, placing millions of lives in a precarious balance between geology and human survival. And as this supervolcano continues to destabilize, the question is no longer if the situation will worsen, but how far it can go before breathing itself becomes a daily risk in one of Europe's most historic cities. So if you want real-time updates and deep analysis on this unfolding crisis, make sure you subscribe to the channel because Campi Flegrei has made its move, and the world is only just beginning to understand what that means.